Hey folks, welcome back to the farm. We're in the kitchen today. Kelly's going to be home in a little bit, so we're thinking about supper. And as I was thinking about supper, for some reason, I thought about a meal that I used to have years ago when I was just a child. And it's been like a forgotten recipe for like the rest of my life. I haven't had it since, but it sounded good, so we're going to make it. We're going to make cream tuna over homemade biscuits. So if that's intriguing, and it should be, if you've never had it, you need to try it. We're going to make it right now, so stick around. So, homemade biscuits. If you want to make the canned biscuits, go ahead. But homemade biscuits are like the easiest recipe you could ever make. Write the recipe down, tape it on the inside of your cabinet so you have it handy, and you can knock out biscuits really quick. And we're going to make these even easier. So let's get started. So we're going to be making our biscuits in our Ninja blender here. You can see it's got the big chopper blades. You could do this in your food processor just like you would do pie crust or something like that. So to start with, we're going to use 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Now to our flour, we're going to add 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder. That's what gives your biscuits the rise. And then we'll just guesstimate a half with our spoon there. We also need a half a teaspoon salt. And we're going to give this a couple pulses just to mix our dry ingredients. That's all you need. So next thing we have is butter right out of the fridge. It's nice and cold, and it's 1/3 of a cup. So we've cut that into some smaller pieces just with a knife, and we'll throw them in there. Just like pie dough, we want those little small pieces of butter to stay intact. We don't want it to be mixed in with the dry mixture. And those little small pieces of butter are what gives you your flaky biscuits. Now that our butter's in here, we're going to pulse it a few times. You want to get the butter pieces down to where they're about the size of a pea. So we'll open it up and take a look. Looks like we're there. You can see the butter pieces are a lot smaller. So now we're going to get some milk. So you want 3/4 of a cup of good cold whole milk. So we're going to add that to our dry mixture in there. We're going to put our lid on, and we're going to pulse our mixer just until the dough comes together down there. It kind of starts rolling around. Okay, you see how it's come together there? There's no dry in the mix. So now we can put it out on our cookie sheet. So I'm going to get some flour on my hands, and then we'll get in here and pull this dough out. Just like that. Flour on my other hand. And then we're just going to push this dough out into a rectangle about 1/2 inch thick. I'm going to use my favorite little cutter knife. We'll put a little flour on that as well. So we want to cut this into 3 pieces. So we'll cut it into thirds this direction. A little more flour on the cutter. And then we'll cut it into thirds the other direction, just like that. And there's our square biscuits. And what I do is I just kind of pick them up and I space them out a little bit so they're not touching. So we'll go about like that. We'll just pull these apart basically. And there's our biscuits, just like that, folks. Super easy. Now you can absolutely make round biscuits if this just bothers you way too much. But if you notice, when you cut round biscuits, you end up with the leftover dough that's all in between those round biscuits. You got to reform the dough to cut more biscuits, and pretty soon you've overworked your dough and your biscuits are going to get tougher. This way we didn't work it too much at all, and they're ready to go in the oven. Now with our biscuits ready to go, I like to take my olive oil spray, give them a little spray before they go in the oven. And these are going to go into a preheated 475 degree oven. Just like that. 12 to 15 minutes and you got biscuits. So easy. So now that we've got our easy biscuits done, let's start talking about our cream tuna. Now this recipe has been adapted many ways. You can go absolutely insane with this recipe. So you remember back in the days like World War II, I know you weren't there, but you remember from that, the military used to make what's called S.O.S, or stuff on a shingle. Basically the same recipe. Breakfast gravy, same recipe. It's just substituting different meats and different liquids. You can go absolutely bonkers with this. You can use turkey, you can use hamburger, you can use chipped beef, you can use ham, you can use sausage, chicken, whatever, seafood even. We've got a bunch of different options just right on hand here. So here's the tuna we're going to use. You want to use about 6 to 8 ounces. These are 4 ounces apiece. This is our natural catch tuna that we really enjoy. So we're going to use tuna, but you can use clams, you can use crab meat, canned chicken. We have chicken that we put through the pressure cooker last night. This is all the dark meat. This is the light meat. Really dark because it's free-range chicken. You can use beef, like anything you want, any kind of meat. So because we're using packed tuna, the liquid that's in the can, we're going to save. Now you can do a couple different things with this liquid, and it depends on what type of liquid it is. This tuna is packed in olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. So we're going to use this olive oil for some of our fat that we make our roux with, so we get that really good extra tuna flavor. Now if it was packed in water, you would use that liquid for your thickening liquid, or your liquid that you pour in after you make your roux. And that's another way you can actually go crazy with this recipe, because you can change the liquid up. You can use everything from water to beer and wine or whatever. But since we're making cream tuna, we're going to use milk. Now, if you were making something with chicken, you could use chicken stock. If you were making something with beef, you could use beef stock or beef broth. You can go absolutely crazy on the liquid too, but we're going to incorporate this oil into the oil that we make our roux. So we're using olive oil. So I'm going to bring my olive or my oil in the cup up to a 1/4 cup, because that's what we need. Now, another way you can change this recipe up, like I said, you can go crazy as you want. Any kind of fat will do. You can use olive oil, butter, lard, tallow, any kind of fat that you want. Shortening, just doesn't matter. You can use grease drippings from frying meat or whatever. Any kind of oil. Now I'm going to pour this oil in another container here, because I need my 2-cup measure to measure my liquid with. So 2 cups of milk is what we're using. Now this is the same ratio I tell you for making gravy. Remember our gravy making video? 1/4 cup fat, 1/4 cup flour, to 2 cups of liquid makes your perfect gravy. We used to guess on all of that when I was a kid, but I figured it out and made it easy for you. 1/4 cup, 1/4 cup, and 2 cups of liquid. Easy as that. This recipe is very easily scalable too, so this is going to feed Kelly and I for supper. If you had a 4-person family, you would just double it. You use 1/2 cup of fat, 1/2 cup of flour, and 4 cups of liquid. That's all you got to do. Of course, you have to up your tuna to like a pound, or whatever meat you're using to a pound, and then that would work out. Remember one of my pet peeves, this is a dry measuring cup. This is a wet measuring cup. You try to measure liquid in these measuring cup, it runs over and goes all over the place. Drives me crazy watching people do recipes and they're using these to do liquid or these to do dry where you can't level them out. Anyway, beyond my pet peeve soapbox. So 1/4 cup oil, 1/4 cup flour, 2 cups of milk or whatever liquid, fat, whatever you're using. We've got our wild catch tuna. Look at that beautiful tuna. That's why we buy it. The normal tuna you get from the store, you can barely tell there's even solid pieces to it. Salt and pepper, which we will need. So you want to do this in a big skillet. We're going to be using our big kind of wok style skillet there. You can go ahead and put the oil in if you're using non-stick. If you're using cast iron or stainless steel, you definitely want to heat your pan first. And then we can also go ahead and put our flour in with our oil to make our roux. Now I like lots of pepper in my gravy and cream stuff, so I'll go with black pepper. We're going to salt this as well. I don't know, about a 1/2 teaspoon or so of salt. You can always adjust later. And we'll put the fire under that and get that flour cooked so we don't have the raw flour flavor. Timer just went off on our biscuits. Look at those babies. We're going to get some butter. Rub some butter on top of these babies. A little bit of oil we sprinkled on or sprayed on top right before we put it in the oven. Made them brown really nicely. If you had melted butter with a brush, this would go a lot better, but using what we got. Look at those gorgeous biscuits. Now this recipe, this like cream tuna, creamed whatever, creamed spinach, creamed beef, whatever, was a Southern recipe. And that's why they used it a lot in the military, because in World War II, a lot of your cooks were African American people from the South. And people in the South knew how to stretch meals out. And that's what this would do. If you had a little bit of meat or a little bit of something, if you creamed it, it made it a lot more hearty, and it spread that meal out where you could feed a family with it instead of just a couple of people. And you could put it over rice, potatoes, biscuits, whatever you felt like having or had on hand. That's what they used. So this is poor people food, folks, and everybody just grew to love it. Okay, we're going to get going. You can see our roux is sizzling a little bit here. You don't want to cook it too long, because the longer you cook roux, the less thickening power it has. So in with the whole 2 cups of our liquid, which again we're using milk. And then you just want to give this a stir, break up all those bits of the roux. It'll look kind of lumpy here to begin with, but that will all incorporate. Alright, see how it's all incorporated now? Now whenever I cook something thick like this, I use a flat utensil so I can keep the bottom clean, so we're not scorching anything on the bottom. Now when this thing comes to a boil and the whole pan is boiling, that's as thick as it will get as it's cooking. It'll obviously get thicker as it cools, but we want to eat it hot, so if it gets too thick on you, all you got to do is just add a touch more milk in it. You can see as it's getting hot now, it's starting to thicken. Everything's coming together a lot better. soon as this thing comes to a full boil, we'll kill the heat. Alright, you can see we're at a full boil now. So off goes the heat. And we're going to start adding our tuna. And we can break our tuna up after it gets in the pan. There's going to be a little residual oil or water left in these pans or in the cans here, but that's alright. And then we'll just stir that in, break it up. Now if you find you need to reheat it a little bit after this step, that's fine. Just kick your burner back on for a second and give it another little shot. Now if you like these things with a little bit of bite like I do, you could put about a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper in here and give it a nice little kick. Kelly doesn't like it hot, so we won't do that. I'll add my heat on the plate. Stir that tuna into the mix. And then you want to taste it for seasoning. Make sure you've got enough salt and pepper in there. Looks like I may add a little more pepper. Okay, we're going to give it a taste. Needs a little more salt. So add about another 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we're also going to go with a little more pepper. About like that. Stir all that in. Alright, time to serve this up. Look at our beautiful biscuits. Look at the crumb on that biscuit. Isn't that gorgeous? Perfect. Nice and soft. Not too crumbly. Pull that apart. Kelly's home. Dogs are all excited. So cream tuna right over our biscuits. Hi, baby.
Okay.
There we go, a little dried parsley from the garden on top. Doesn't that look amazing? Now for the taste test. Remember, I haven't had this in like 40 years. Crazy long time ago. Just like I remember it. Very yummy. Really good stick to your ribs meal on a cold winter night. Awesome. And it's gone. Well, yet another fantastic supper, folks. Kelly loved it too. Amazing meal, and it brought back a load of childhood memories for me. I can't believe I've been so long since I've had that. But the most versatile recipe you'll ever find. You can go 100 different ways with this recipe. So I hope you try it real soon. I think you're going to enjoy it. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us here real soon at Mark Kelly Farm.